Hello and welcome to In Business Talks 2. We are thrilled to welcome you to our bonus episode, The Friday Fix. In our bonus episode this week, we will be discussing a business-related subject with either one of our wonderful In Business Networking members or a fellow business owner who will be sharing their advice, thoughts or knowledge on a particular topic.
We are your hosts, Tracy and Ian Earle, founders of In Business, a networking and business support community. We host online and face-to-face events and we'd love to meet you, so why not come along? The link to book is in the show notes. Today is part 2 of our podcast with Mark Jarvis. Now Mark is a business mentor and he specialises in helping people to grow their businesses and to scale up. Now last time we talked about which comes first, the sales pipeline or the relationship pipeline, and this is part 2 of that episode.
So you were telling us about then. So try and pick up. You were telling us how we can do this.
You were talking about it takes
facts,
8
hours and 1 in 20 and all that. Yeah, just to get your train of thought back together.
Absolutely, thank you for that. Yeah. So as we began saying there, what I found is it takes on average 8 hours to win a client. 8 hours of work with emails and phone calls and backwards and forwards and conversations and all that thing. It takes about 8 hours worth of work. And I found, and from feedback that I've had as well, that it takes we often get about 1 in 20 conversion, and 20 includes all of your social media outreach and all the broadcast advertising and marketing and stuff that we do these days through various platforms. So if we have 1 in 20 conversion rate on average, it's a generic assumption, and 8 hours to win a client, it's also taken us amount of time to not win 19 clients. Yeah. Now let's not say that it's going to be 8 hours of work to not win 19 clients. Let's say that's 4 hours work. So if it takes you 4 hours work to not win 19 clients and 8 hours work to win 1 client, that's 84 hours work to win a client. So if we're following the traditional sales pipeline where we're chasing quantity and turnover, on average, it takes us 84 hours work to win a client. Now, can we see why so many small micro businesses are just so busy all the time?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it makes sense when you say it like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite scary, really. Yeah.
And it's the harsh reality, and and I know people's timings and numbers are going to be slightly different.
Yeah,
of course they are. Of course they are. But on average, that's a huge impact on a small business's time. But how about we did it a different way? How about we remember that relationships are the key to business? So in a sales pipeline, you've got 20 prospects in one end and 1 client out the other end, basically. Okay. And then time to do some things on along the way. But imagine you're starting to create a relationship pipeline where you're building relationships with people. You meet them at networking. Plug there. So you meet somebody at a networking event, you start to get to know them, you do your follow-up one-to-one, you think, you know what, this person is good, they've got connections into my market, there's something going on there, we're quite similar in our values, all of those sorts of things, and you start to build a relationship with them. Well, guess what? If you wanted to get 1 client and 1 person who knew you well and trusted you, recommended you once, you can get that client through building a relationship with 1 person. Now imagine that 1 person introduces you again. You're still only building a relationship with 1 person, and now that person has brought you 2 clients. Now imagine that person does it again. Now you build a relationship with 1 person, and that person has brought you 3 clients. Yeah. The list goes on and on and on. So you can see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So now imagine that you have 4 or 5, or maybe up to 10 or a dozen or so, no more than that. So let's say 10. Yeah. Let's say 10 people around you that you're building close relationships with, and we'll talk about this in a moment, how to do that. You've got 10 people around you who each bring you 1 client per quarter. They refer you once a quarter each. Now, I don't know about you, but I certainly refer people at least once a quarter.
Yeah,
we're not talking about every week or every month or anything. Let's be honest and let's be realistic.
Yeah.
So let's say that you've got 10 people who each refer you once a quarter. That's 40 clients. Okay. I'm building relationships with 10 people. Yes, I've got to do some conversion stuff as well. And of course, I've got to close the sales, and I've still got all of that to do, of course.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, I'm acquiring 40 clients by working with 10 people.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm going to spend 84 hours for each client I'm going to acquire, if I do that on my own and I want to acquire 40 clients, I'm just trying to quickly do the maths in my head. I'm not going to do it, but
84 times 40.
well, it's 84 times 40, whatever that is, but it's a big number. I think we can agree it's a big number. So over the next 12 months, if I wanted to onboard 40 clients, Tracy's got a calculator there.
3,360.
3,000. So if I wanted to onboard 40 clients over the next 12 months, that's going to cost me 3,000 and a bit hours.
Yeah.
How many years is that?
Yeah, but over a year, let's just say. Or I can spend 4, 5, 6 hours per person over the year building a relationship with 10 people.
Yeah.
So that's 60 hours. 60 hours relationship building to generate 40 clients, or 3,000 and a bit hours to acquire 40 clients myself.
Yeah. That's a big difference.
Okay, so I understand, people's numbers are different. I understand people's numbers are different, but what I wanted to share with you today is that principle, just that logical step. Insert your own numbers into that.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
But I wanted to share that logical step with you. I was just going to say, and that's what most people do. And that's the point, the point that most people reach when they're busy in their business.
Right.
Yeah. Puts into perspective.
I suppose what I was going to add to that as well, potentially, what's not to say one of the clients you get introduced to by this person who's referred you doesn't also become and trust you and all that stuff.
And refer.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Fans out.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah, sorry, I just thought it's a really good point. I like that. Yeah, you're right, and
yeah, and that compound is actually just as a further point I was going to make to share with you today. If you think about there are 5 when I'm teaching people about how to generate to build a relationship pipeline for their business and to really build referral relationships that are consistent, quality driven, and they repeat, as briefly outlined for you. But there are 5 steps in this process, and this is where most businesses are. So, as we've said already, most businesses that have been established for perhaps a year or two will start to build a network of people around them. They'll go to networking events, they'll get known, they'll become visible, all of those sorts of things. So we understand that. And so most people begin to generate introductions from their customers. So often customers create further referrals and introductions for them.
Yeah.
Really. And equally, over time, as I say, when people and businesses have been established a year or two, they start to find that some of their network are beginning to do the same thing. So some of their network are beginning to create introductions and referrals for them. But I'm sure we can both agree that those introductions are purely accidental and random.
Yeah.
So it requires that the person's in the right place at the right time, and they're asked the question, do you know somebody who can help me with X, Y, Z? So those things happen. And that's something that happens naturally. And that's where most businesses can get to. And probably because that's most businesses, again, it's probably most people listening to us today. So now imagine that most of your customers also refer you most of the time. Not just sometimes, but most of the time. Now let's also imagine that most of your network also refer you most of the time. Not some of the time, but most of the time. Not all the time. Come on, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
But imagine a world, your business now, where most of your customers refer you most of the time, most of your network refer you most of the time. My question then is, how much longer do you want to chase those 3,500 hours odd, 3,300 hours odd to generate your next 40 clients? Okay. And what most people feel at this point is that following this relationship building approach is too time consuming. They don't have time for it. I'm going to use the word argument because it is an argument, is do you really have time not to do it? Because your alternative is to spend hours and hours and hours every time you want to acquire a new client. Even if you employ a salesperson in your business, they're still going to have to do that one at a time quantity turnover chasing methodology. So I've covered the first four, haven't I? So some of your customers refer you sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of your network refer you sometimes, which is an accidental process and where most people end up. But now let's look at the next three levels. Most of your customers refer you most of the time. Mm-hmm. Most of your network refer you most of your network refer you most of the time. And the icing on the cake, the absolute cream, is most of your customers and most of your network refer you for what you want next. Now, just let that sink in for a moment.
Right.
Because I hope you agree that most of your customers, particularly customers, these are absolutely a good example. Customers tend to refer you for what they themselves bought.
Yes.
So if a customer buys a product, they tend to recommend the same product to another prospect.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing they have had experiences. We haven't got time to get into why that happens, but that's just what happens.
Yeah.
And similarly in your network. So your network will refer you for what they're aware of that you do. So most business that comes to you by connection, recommendation, referral, whatever you want to call it, tends to be more of the same business that you generate anyway. That's great. Okay, that's great. But how about thinking about, well, what sort of business do I want this time next year? How is my target market evolving? Which new markets am I opening up? Which new products and services am I creating and building that I'd like to promote to people in the future? If your network and your customers could do that for you, do you think that that's going to create a more secure future for your business? And I think we'll agree the answer is
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we agree with that 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm proposing today is that we start to, I'm not saying start ignoring the sales pipeline. Don't ignore it. Don't turn it off. But the sales pipeline is something that everybody has, but it's the start point for businesses. And that's the key thing that I'd like people to take away from today. The sales pipeline is where everybody starts, but it's not the end game. Because if we truly want to evolve and scale our business and focus on profitability, not just quantity and turnover, then we have to move and embrace and accept the way that people work, humans work. They work in a relational way. Build relationships with people, and that's going to help you generate a level of income in terms of leads and recommendations and referrals that realistically, it's harsh to say, but most businesses will never have the opportunity to access.
Yeah.
Simply because they're not aware of this. And that's coming back to my point originally. Learning how to grow and scale a business should not be the secret. It takes years to learn. And that's one of those secrets that I've learned, that unlocking our relationships in business is where our future lies.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? I mean, from your experience, without giving all your secrets away, obviously, what might a couple of top tips? How would you advise your clients to start this relationship journey? Where should they be looking? Where do you point them? Does that make sense? How do you?
Yes.
How do they begin?
Sure. So there's a number of things that I suggest to people they can start to do. The first one is to really assess where you're spending your time in terms of your network. So again, I suggest to people that they go through some level of analysis to say, well, is my network the sort of network that I need to be involved in? So a couple of quick questions to ask yourself. The network you're involved in, can these people buy from me? So can you build a transactional relationship with the people in your network? Okay. Not the ideal, because that's not the purpose of networking, but it's a baseline to start with. Second one, can these people introduce me? Can these people introduce me to others? The third one, and arguably the most important one, is will they?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm just trying to be realistic with us today and on our conversation. There's lots of people out there and it's great that we all go out there networking, and some people can buy from us and we can do some transactional stuff. Some people can refer us. But if the people around you are not willing to take action on your behalf, and similarly, it's a quid pro quo, it's a 50-50 thing. If they're not willing to take action for you, you need to think about being in a different place. Because if it's not happening now, it probably won't.
No.
Do you get them? How do you make them willing? Is there a secret? Oh, sorry, I'm not trying to spoil your call. I'm not trying to ruin you. How do you make them willing? I mean, what is it that makes people willing to recommend you or whatever?
That's those relationships, I would
Well,
say.
yeah.
Does it not go back down to the relationship that you have with them?
Yes. So I'll finish off on these other points if I may quickly, Ian, and then I'll come back to that question. If you don't feel I answer it properly, ask me again. So can these people buy? Can they introduce? Will they? Fourth one is, do these people have reach into my target market? So that's the fourth sort of self-assessment question. Okay. Yeah. And then the fifth one and the final one is, are they credible in their own target market?
Yeah, because if they're not, then that's your reputation gone as well.
Absolutely, exactly that, Tracy. So if they're not credible in their own target market, then any recommendation that they create for you by transfer is not likely to be credible.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, I know, I'm just being honest with you. Those are the 5 questions that I always suggest to people that they ask themselves when they're assessing which networks to be involved in.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about networking clubs, but I'm talking general networking.
The whole thing. Yeah.
Our professional network, in terms of everybody that we have around us. So those are the 5 assessment things. So to come back to your question, Ian, you start to work with people that are like you. Yeah, where you have shared values, you have shared beliefs, your moral compass points in the same direction, sort of thing. That sort of analogy. And we all know that we like being around people that are like us, because guess what? That's how we're built. We're built as a human to build communities with people that are like us. We've done it for hundreds of thousands of years. So that's the first step. Then you start to share with each other, as you're building a relationship, why what you do is important and why it's important to you. Because as I often say when I'm teaching people about referrals and relationship marketing, is I don't care what you do, but I care about why you care about what you do. Yeah. So just as a quick example, I'm a business mentor, business coach, whatever. We all know lots of business mentors and business coaches. So why would I choose one business coach over another? Because of their story, because of why they do what they do, because of why it's important to them, all of those sorts of things. But the reality is, if all we're doing is promoting what we do, the recipient of that message can go out and find somebody that they're more likely to believe in. Okay. And that's what we do, isn't it? Now with Global Choice, we will go off and we will do our own research.
Yeah.
And we will choose somebody that we feel close to. We feel there's some synergy between us.
Yeah.
But in a relationship building sort of arena, if you like, if you start with that, you're starting to build the relationship based on values and beliefs and moral compass and all that sort of thing. So your second part of the question, Ian, was why would they do it? The answer to that is because you're doing it for them at a very basic level. So this is a 50-50 thing, and I'm not talking about the transactional approach to exchanging business opportunities. Okay. So thinking about some of the wider business networking groups and clubs and things like that, where, here's a referral. Well, no, I want a referral back. Yes. Okay. It doesn't matter. That's the realistic, the world we're in. But we're beyond that. So at this deep relational level, we're exchanging value. We're not exchanging quantity. So it's not one for one. It's okay, so you tell me what you need from this relationship. I'll tell you what I would like from this relationship. And where those two things overlap, we can help each other.
Yeah.
I hope that sort of begins to answer the question, Ian. Why would they?
Yeah, it's good. Is that? Yeah. Good
So
answer.
it's not a one-for-one thing.
No.
Remember, we're moving away from this numbers, quantity, turnover mindset, because one-for-one is still quantity.
Yeah.
Okay, we're moving away from that. We're moving into quality and purpose and profitability, sustainable profitability.
Yeah. No, like that.
Yeah, because I mean, it is easy to talk to people and then forget what they've asked for and think, well, I'll refer them another day, or I'll nothing's come, nobody's come into my field almost that I can refer them to. Sometimes it's easier just to not see the connection, but it's looking, isn't it, and finding those connections and making the effort to, like you say, to refer them on.
Yeah. And the key message I'd like us to be mindful of and to start thinking about is that we are moving away from a quantity approach. So building relationships with people to, as you say, Tracy, well, that's okay, but I'll do it later. We're still sitting in that, okay, I've got too many people around me now. We just need a few.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if we're in networking groups and clubs and things like that with 20, 30, 40, 50 people, it's not trying to help 30, 40, 50 people. It's, okay, so who are the half dozen or so people that are really close with me in terms of what we're doing and synergistic in terms of industry, all of those things. Do they reach into my market? Are they credible? All of those things.
Yeah.
You just want half a dozen.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 at the tops.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
It's like the quality. It's like the quality over quantity thing, isn't it? In effect, really.
Exactly my point, Ian. Exactly my point today.
Yeah.
There was some research done by a guy called Robin Dunbar. It's called the Dunbar number. He's an anthropologist type of professory type person. But he did some research a little while ago, well, actually quite a while ago now, talking about the number of relationships that the human being is capable of maintaining. Please go and Google it. And my apologies to Mr. Dunbar for not plagiarizing, but for creating a bit of a mess of his message. But the essence of it is, and I've written some articles about all of this stuff on my website. The essence of it is that the human being has evolved to manage in their mind a certain number of relationships. So, and that number is about 150. So the Dunbar number, it's called the Dunbar number, is 150. And if you think about, there's a formula, I'll come to that in a moment. If you think about the number of relationships we have around us, we know when we start to feel overwhelmed. It's a natural thing because we're human. We're human. And again, I come back to this challenge in our modern technological world with our social media, the social media companies driving belief that more is better.
Yeah.
Okay, because we need to understand that they're there to serve their shareholders. They're not there to serve us.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that actually as a human being, there's only a certain number of relationships that I can maintain in my mind and still be comfortable. And it's about 150.
Right.
And the formula is n squared minus n divided by 2, where n is the number of people in a relation, in a team, in a group. So if you say you've got 10 people around you, 10 squared is 100, minus 10 is 90, divide that by 2 is 45. So if I was to say, okay, you've got to manage 45 relationships, you're probably thinking 45 is a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 45, just so we're aware, so our audience are aware. It's not just the other 9 people that I'm connected to, but as a human, I need to understand the relationships between the other 9 people in the group. So I may have a relationship with person A, but I need to understand the relationship between person B and person C and person C and person D. So that's why it's a compound. That's why it's 45. So if I said to you, you need to manage 45 relationships, that's thinking, oh my goodness, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I said to you, okay, so manage 10 relationships, that's okay. Would you agree that it feels?
Yeah, it does. Feels more comfortable.
It feels okay.
Yeah.
And I come back to this. We need to rely on our feelings and understand how we work in order to not be pushed into stuff that really will challenge our ability to not just to grow and scale our business, but will also affect our wellness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we'll perhaps not get too far into that conversation. That's another discussion for another day. But as I say, what I really wanted to highlight for us today is the importance of building sustainable, profitable relationships in business, not just continuing to follow the transactional sales driven process that we all start with. We have to start there because that's where we all start. But we need to recognize when it's time to start developing again and taking another step forward. And that's part of this. It shouldn't take years to learn how to do this.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, this when you mention the size of relationships, I'm thinking on a group sort of basis. I did a survey a few weeks ago on LinkedIn. Yeah, I did. I did a survey on LinkedIn, and it was about what sort of size of a networking group are you sort of comfortable with? And I sort of, I think 0 to 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 75, and then 75 to 100 plus. And almost, God, I can't remember the figures now, but it was at least 52% people said 0 to 20, and 48% said the 0 to 50, and something like that. And the figures just dropped for the higher numbers after that. And my perception has always been when you visit networking groups, the more you see, the more you get excited, or you more think, "Oh, this is great! There's 100 people here." But when I stepped back and thought about it, and I think I did a bit of a post on it, you don't actually get to speak to 100 people in the damn room. You can only speak to 5 or 6. So if there's 20 there, it's easier to get around. Do you know, probably the choice of the variety of people aren't there. But if it's about relations, I just thought it was an interesting comment you made there, and how it's sort of half tenuously sort of related to what I did on the groups thing. But yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it's a very good point that you make here, and completely in line with what we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
You know, when we walk into a room where we see lots of opportunity, we see that because we have been drawn to chase quantity.
Yeah.
You know, our modern technological world tells us that we must chase quantity.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not true.
No. Yeah. But that's what you believe, isn't it? As soon as you walk into a room, you think, whoopee do, there's 100 people in it. But like we said, it doesn't, you know, you can't talk to everyone. You can't build relationships.
It's not the answer for that. The whole point of, you know, that this guy Robin Dunbar and his Dunbar number. You know, if you've got a room full of sort of up to 20 people, okay, this is manageable. I can see what's going on. I can have a conversation with half a dozen or so people. We can start to discover whether we can build a meaningful relationship, and we can go from there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it looked quite nice for that. Yeah. Well, really enjoyed the conversation. There's some good stuff there. Thank you, Mark. You've got me really thinking now. Yeah. Yeah, excellent. And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you and find out more, what's the best way of doing that then, Mark?
Thank you, Ian. So you can just Google Mark Jarvis Academy. You'll always find me if you just Google Mark Jarvis Academy. There's a lot of courses and stuff that I have for business people in the positions at various levels of growth as they are. But that's probably the easiest thing to do. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook and stuff like that. Of course you can, because that's where we need to be these days.
Yeah.
But you can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Jarvis, or just Google the Mark Jarvis Academy.
Yeah, cool. No, I really like your thinking. I think anyone who's, get in touch with Mark would be my suggestion. He's got some good stuff there, I reckon. Yeah, no, thank you for that, Mark.
Yeah, you're always putting some interesting stuff on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I noticed. We'll put all those links in the show notes so that people can just click on them and access you very easily. And hopefully we'll see you again in a year's time.
Yeah, let's not leave it as long next time. He knows some good stuff, doesn't Matt? Let's not leave it as long. Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure.
Thank you again.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah. My pleasure. And those questions that I shared with you, they're also written in one of my blogs.
Right.
So you can go and get those questions again if you need them from one of my blog posts. There's also I'm sort of building on those 5 questions with how can we assess the right people to be around as well. We haven't had time to get into that today, but again, it's a part 2 of a blog on my website.
Yeah, cool.
Great.
Excellent.
Lovely.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're almost at the end of this week's show, but as a reminder, before we go, don't forget to book your place at one of our online events, where you can meet some great business owners, build those relationships, and the best business, as we know, comes from the best relationships. The link is in the show notes.
We'd also like to mention our books, which are available on Amazon. How to Improve Your Business Networking Skills, 52 Tips to Help You With Your Networking, our Notably Networking One-to-One Networking Notebook, a place to keep all your notes from those all-important follow-up one-to-ones, and last but not least, our 90 Days to Your Success Journal, where you can plan, set and plot the actions you will take to achieve your goals.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on In Business Talks 2 Friday Fix. We hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, all that we ask is that you simply tell a friend about the show. And please follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd really appreciate it.
So until next time, this is Ian and Tracy, and together we are in business.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.